Stephen Crowder, Narcissist, Part 2. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We're going to examine the evidence to make a determination as to whether Stephen Crowder is a narcissist and also pick through some of the video footage as well that shows his behaviour. But first of all, we're going to go back in time, because as I explained, in order to make a determination as to whether somebody is a narcissist or not, we need to look at a range of evidence, but it needs to also come over a period of time. And we're going to roll back to December 2012. Here, Stephen Crowder attended the Michigan Right to Work rally and protest, where he was assaulted. This is an article that comes from Forbes, and it provides us with further insight into his behaviours, so I can break them down for you. The journalist, Gregory S. McNeil, spoke with Crowder by telephone to flesh out some of the details surrounding the incident. Crowder, who attended the rally and protest on his own to document the event, was not present at the invitation of or sponsored by Americans for Prosperity or Fox News, although Fox News was aware that he would be covering the event. This suggests, therefore, that he has turned up to something uninvited. That is a lack of boundary recognition. Now, remember, it's important for you to keep in your minds as we work through this evidence that many people who are not narcissists will engage in behavior which is narcissistic, but doesn't mean that they are narcissists. So people can fail to recognize a boundary, but that doesn't make them per se a narcissist. Somebody can act with a sense of entitlement. It doesn't mean per se that they are a narcissist. So many people, where we would analyze their behaviors, we would see some scoring of narcissistic indicators, but they're not narcissists. So keep that in mind. So that when I state, for instance, a narcissistic indicator, that's all it is, an indicator. It doesn't mean that he's a narcissist. So if you're thinking, oh, but hang on, HG, just because he's done that, he might be doing it for this reason, that reason. Absolutely. The driver may not be narcissism, but the effect is still a narcissistic indicator. But we need to see if, through all of this evidence, there is enough to show that he gets over the threshold to be shown to be a narcissist. Accordingly, turning up to something that he wasn't invited is a lack of boundary recognition. Is it his narcissism that's driven him to do that? Or it might be, for instance, that he deems that it's appropriate to do so uninvited because the event ought to be covered. Crowder was located near the Americans for Prosperity tent, which, in his words, was torn down with women and possibly children still in the tent. Crowder described an event that turned into a melee, with protesters surrounding him and hundreds of right-to-work proponents. The footage, shot in HD, has allowed bloggers to take multiple screen captures of his assailant and of the assault itself. Crowder provided me with one screen capture, clearly showing him being punched in the face. Crowder contends that despite being assaulted, I did not hit anyone. I did not commit an act of violence against anyone. Whether that's correct, the video evidence would bear that out. As for whether he instigated the assault or whether the assault may have been justified, Crowder said, I absolutely instigated it by being present when they didn't want me there, and by asking them why they would be opposed to right to work. In doing that, I guess I've warranted being assaulted. That is what I've been told by commenters on blogs and on Twitter. They also say I wasn't hurt badly enough to be complaining about the assault. At first, this might sound like some form of contrition and acknowledgement of accountability, but it isn't. What he's basically saying is, I turned up, and in their minds, that was enough for them to assault me. Is he telling the truth? And if so, his sole presence shouldn't be sufficient for people to assault him. He shouldn't merit being assaulted just because he's exercising his right to turn up somewhere. Or would he know that there was a risk of this happening and he revelled in it? Because, of course, getting people's reactions would provide him with fuel and a further opportunity to triangulate those who have assaulted him with his audience. Crowder posted photos to his Twitter account showing a chipped tooth and minor cut to his head. Why doesn't he keep this private? Does he feel a need to document everything that's happened to him? Or is it fair play for him to do so? Because that's part of what his channel and platforms are. That he has a voice to talk about events such as this, and therefore he's justified in showing to the world, look, I attended this event, I was assaulted, and look, I've been injured. In the video, no police can be seen, and Crowder noted that there was not a single cop to be found, not one. I was there for about 5 to 10 minutes after the assault. Then I was assaulted a second time when the man yanked me from behind near the tent. Once the tent was down, I had no protection. I was thinking there would be a police officer there to take a statement. Instead, people surrounded me and followed me to my car, making threats, and I had to get out of there. To date, Crowder has not filed a police report. He is instead hoping that his assailant will turn himself in. Is this him exercising responsibility, allowing the man to turn himself in, rather than him going to the police? Or is this perhaps some facade management? This man has two choices. We are going to find him. He can come forward and confess, and he will go to jail, Crowder said. Or option number 2, he can face me in the People's Octagon, and all the money raised to find him will be donated to his union of choice if he beats me in a legally sanctioned mixed martial arts bout. Is this showmanship? Certainly looks that way, which demonstrates grandiosity. He can go to jail or he can fight me legally, and if he wins, he can get a huge payday for his union of choice. Crowder stated that he has some martial arts training, much of which he did not use while being assaulted, because in his words, I believe that if I would have defended myself, I would have been killed where I stood. Is that a somewhat contrarian view, that if you defended yourself, you would have been killed? Following today's events, Crowder said, I will give this man an allotted period of time after making the challenge. If he doesn't come forward, I will go to the authorities, file a report and bring him to justice, issuing a threat. As for whether he will file a police report or sue, Crowder said he did not file a police report because he lives over an hour away. It was a timing thing. I had to get back and offload the footage. I also have no interest in or energy to devote to suing this person, even though that's what people want. Some critics of Crowder contend that he has not been transparent by only releasing selected video clips. Is this a revision of history? To which Crowder responded, all of my videos, everything I upload is short and edited. I've been doing this for a long time. I have a catalogue of several hundred videos. If people think it's out of context, I would encourage them to look at the hours of footage from hundreds of different angles to see this was not an isolated incident. He continued, if we need more context, I am more than happy to provide it. We are here in the interest of transparency. We keep the phones and cameras going. They smash it out of your hands. One particular section of video has drawn scrutiny. At 33 seconds, 2 individuals are seen aggressively approaching Crowder, one of whom has been identified as Tony based on the name on his jacket. After Tony and his companion approach Crowder, there is an editorial cut. Then Crowder is heard saying, you just assaulted me, buddy. I asked Crowder why that initial assault was edited. He responded, the camera pans away because the camera was jostled. The cameraman was shoved around too. A bunch of people were being shoved as the protesters tried to tear down the tent, a tent that wasn't their property. They were tearing down a tent with women and children in it, and the man who was coming at me, I think, tripped over the tent peg, fell towards me, and that's when I said, you assaulted me. Now, to my mind, somebody tripping over a tent peg and falling towards somebody is not an assault. Therefore, why does he label it is? And also, is the editorial cut suspicious? Might this be an individual that is revising history? Right after that, he sucker punched me. My guess is that he was on his way down, he grabbed me and started shoving me. I followed up again by asking Crowder about the events leading to his statement, you assaulted me, and whether it was possible the Percy Tony merely fell into him. Crowder stated at that point in time they were shoving me. It had been shoving with me saying that's an assault and him getting up and hitting me. That shoving was immediately followed by a clear attack, as the video indicates. It's important to note the context surrounding the shoving and assault. While the shoving and punching were occurring, protesters were pushing down a tent filled with people. Some individuals in and around the tent were trying to stand their ground in an effort to protect the individuals inside the tent and protect themselves. That fact means that the shoving was not some form of mutual combat, but rather was a group of people peacefully assembled who were surrounded and assaulted by an angry mob. So this report from Forbes about his appearance at the 2012 union protest demonstrates a sense of entitlement to turn up and a lack of boundary recognition, shows provocative behaviour, but of course he thrives on that provocative behaviour in terms of what his YouTube channel is about. Has there been a revision of history? The evidence suggests that there might have been. And is what he's saying a denial of what's going on and a deflection and blame shifting, or is it simply the case that his presence meant that he was unfairly assaulted and in the circumstances he was justified in speaking out about this? Some evidence forming already that shows some narcissistic indicators which others are questionable. We'll continue to examine the behaviour of Mr. Crowder. Join me in part 3.